you've overlooked the virtues of religious pluralism in a country that enforces, albeit imperfectly and with continual struggle, separation of church and state. It's as if this book, for all of your admiration of Jefferson, sometimes behaves as if that wall did not exist here, that it had never been made to work anywhere. Is it all conceivable?
There is a problem with having said as I did that religious pluralism is a great thing in itself, and can only be guaranteed by a secular state. The point the religious
Absolutely.
just keep on not getting. You see,
Yeah.
if only this state was all Baptist, we'd be fine. They want to teach creation in school, and we say, all right, I'll teach you the Hindu creation myth to your children. And now are you happy? And they say, no, I'm sure not. I say, well, you asked for it, now you've got it. There is a problem of that kind, which is reverse ecumenicism. I'll tell you what I mean by that, apparently arcane statement. I'm sure everyone here remembers the assault on the tiny European democracy of Denmark last year. Why was the Danish economy subjected to a campaign of international sabotage backed by not just movements but states? Why were its embassies burned down in countries where demonstrations aren't normally allowed? Why was all this? Because its prime minister could not be forced or persuaded to censor cartoons in the afternoon press in Copenhagen because it's against Danish law for him to do this. Right? So, you and I are members of this great profession. Did the Los Angeles Times publish those cartoons?
No, it didn't, but I wrote a column in the Los Angeles Times that began, "The editor of the Los Angeles Times will not allow you to see these cartoons."
Voila.
And went on to argue that it was a great breach of faith with the people of Denmark and with Danish democracy, and that column appeared as one of two I did about this and about the cowardly surrender.
It was one of about 5 that did, and I remember it vividly because you and I were in such a small minority. In a media totally dominated now by image, totally dominated by images. It was not considered appropriate to tell the American public, here's a story that's all about the fight over some pictures, but we're not going to show you what the pictures are.
Listen, as a religious believer myself, I'm totally unaffected by these things.
No, but wait, it's because it's not you I'm trying to persuade. I'm trying to make a point. The image-dominated press said, no, we're not going to show you. Neither out of solidarity with our Danish colleagues, which would be a good point, or just to show you what the fuss is about. No, they wouldn't. That's either out of fear of the religious, or it's out of fear of offending them, which comes to more or less the same thing. It's blackmail. In the United States of America, in 2006, there wasn't a single member of our profession in a position to make a decision who would stand up for one day to outright blackmail. And people say to me, why do you keep mentioning the extremists? I say, because the extremists are the tail that wag the whole dog. And my profession proves it, and your culture proves it, and you were humiliated by this. And it gets worse, because I write for a very small atheist magazine called Free Inquiry, and published out of Amherst, Massachusetts, which did publish the cartoons. See, it's a responsibility. First, solidarity with the Danes. Second, people should see what the fuss is about. Borders Books takes our magazine off the rack. So you can't sell your magazine now. I've refused to read or speak in a Borders bookstore ever since. Least I could do. Unless they really, really, really offer me a lot of money. And a complete capitulation, a total capitulation. And people say, why do I focus on the extremists? Because the extremists have the initiative, and because, I haven't started yet, who condemned what? I remind you, individual Scandinavians were murdered everywhere from Afghanistan to Nigeria by this hysterical, prearranged campaign. 21 ambassadors from so-called Muslim states. How dare they call themselves Muslim? In what sense is Egypt a Muslim country? You can't denominate a country as religious. Waited upon His Holiness the Pope.
Well, and in fact, two leading Egyptian newspapers, as I pointed out in my column, did run the cartoons.
They're braver than the American papers. But His Holiness the Pope condemned what? The cartoons. The State Department condemned the cartoons, not the violence, not the campaign of intimidation. The Archbishop of Canterbury condemned the cartoons. Every church I know of condemned the blasphemy of the cartoons, not the campaign of murder and sabotage and intimidation. In other words, ladies and gentlemen, the barbarians are not at the gate. They're not at the gate. They're well inside. And who held open the door for them? The other religious did. It was the same with Salman Rushdie. When the Ayatollah Khomeini offered money publicly in his own name, without shame, for suborning of murder of a novelist who wasn't an Iranian, who lived in England. A pretty radical attack on what we think we live by, what our Constitution stands for, what Mr. Jefferson, Mr. Paine thought it was worth fighting for. The Cardinal Archbishop of New York, the Chief Rabbi of Israel, His Holiness the Pope, the Archbishop of Canterbury, all condemned what? The novel, the author, for blasphemy. Now get used to this, because you may be living in the last few years where you can complain about it. Because the religious really mean this, you know. They are not just joking. They really mean to abolish everything you care about, and they want to take away everything you love, and to destroy everything you have, and to replace it with a Stone Age ideology derived from the desert of Palestine in a very bad time in human history. Now, and just because they were there first, they think they own everything, and they think they have the right to tell you what you can think, who you can sleep with, what you can eat, what you can read, and they claim the right to make you afraid, even to read, in the United States of America this year. So I don't want to hear from anybody that my book says, well, don't judge religion by its extremes, okay? Don't do that.